Welcome to my podcast series, Formidable Females in Future Flight. I'm a headhunter in this sector and I'm meeting with women from across the future of aviation and aerospace in order to inspire more women to consider this sector for their own careers. I'm delighted to be joined today by Sarah Ellerby, the CEO of a pioneering sustainable aviation fuel business, Pangaea Technologies. Sarah has recently returned to Teesside in the north of England from 18 years in the USA and a global career, which she began as a professional athlete. Sarah, it's such a privilege to have you here today. How are you?
I'm good, Joanne. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. Sarah, you've really built your career almost exclusively in male-dominated industries.
Mhm.
Could you just give us a little bit of a story about that? What has your career been up to now?
As you know, I was a professional athlete for nearly 20 years. That's what took me to the US. I've been relatively sector agnostic. I started out actually in sports entertainment. Worked with some iconic brands such as Michael Jordan, Mia Hamm. Working on strategic partnerships. Ran a £50 million sports platform within golf, LPGA and Champions Tour. Progressed into healthcare, which was with a similar iconic brand, MD Anderson Cancer Centre. Worked with a large health system, which was Orlando Health. They have around about 7 or 8 hospitals within their system, all the way from working from sort of launching various service divisions to all the way to cross-border transaction into China. Spent some time in life sciences as a turnaround CEO. So worked in life sciences for some time. Was also the executive director of a cancer charity over in the States. And then I met a guy called Honourable Robert Hanson, and Robert introduced me to the world of natural resources and energy, very, very traditional sectors. And I remember Robert saying, I think you'll really enjoy these sectors. I think you'll really thrive in these sectors. And I thought to myself, natural resources, oil and gas. I can't think of anything worse, to be quite frank. But here we are, sort of, nearly 10 plus years down the road of being in these sectors. But ultimately, it was Robert that introduced me to sort of very traditional sectors. And it's not been an easy road. I had a sort of a gold mine in the Yukon, in the Tintina Gold Belt. Lots of stories to be told there. I worked with a large sort of oil and gas portfolio in Canada. We had assets in Fort Mac, 80,000 acres in Cape Duvernay. Natural resources, oil and gas. Then I went to natural gas distribution, where I was the chief exec of a technology within the sector, with a very large distribution network company, public company, that basically adopted our sort of meter and regulator station for natural gas distribution. Most of the sort of meter and regulator stations are aging in the US, and they need basically changing out a lot of the methane emission, over about 11% of natural gas distribution, due to aging infrastructure. And that was just before I decided to make the return journey back to where I was born and bred. 18 years over in the US, and now I'm back to where I was born and bred in the UK.
Lovely. If I was to write a story about an inspiring career, I'd actually struggle to improve on yours. I wondered, what is it that led you to return to the UK, and why have you chosen to do this now?
Yeah, I spent 12 years with Robert Hanson, and from a finance and commercial perspective, he gave me great exposure to some really, really interesting sectors. and, lots of shaping from a finance and commercial perspective really came from working with Robert. And I felt like 18 years over in North America, and obviously having various tenures as well, beyond North America and doing some work in China. I just thought that, it was the right time to return and to bring my experience across business transformation, turnaround, scale up within these sectors. I really wanted to bring that experience network back to the northeast of England, because what I saw in the UK, and when I started to think about, is it time to move back, was, the UK is on the forefront of, technology development, innovation, net zero. I saw so many sort of renewable companies popping up. And I also thought that the UK had come had really progressed when it comes to financing. So there was building out of all of these ecosystems, regional ecosystems for finance. I thought, before I left, you had to go to London to raise finance. Now that's not the case. So I thought that, again, it's just bringing my experience back to the Northeast, really creating a legacy and having impact, but also seeing that there's so much innovation out of the UK that I really wanted to join the dots of finance and innovation, because I think the UK, like I said, is really good at innovating. But I think sometimes it's still got some way to go before, to get to a point where it can actually finance these innovations. So that's sort of what brought me back to the UK.
Brilliant. Fundamentally, to make an impact, to utilize all those skills, experience, and contacts, and bring some really strong impact to the area, like you say, that you're from.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the business that you've joined, Nova Pangaea Technologies? What's unique about the business, and what are you aiming to do?
Well, so that was one of the reasons, I looked at lots of different opportunities when thinking about returning back to the UK, but this really had the level of differentiation that I look for. This is a technology that, from my perspective, is an absolute game changer. We are, a technology that will unlock sustainable aviation fuel, or 2G sustainable aviation fuel, in the UK and beyond. And Nova Pangaea has this it's called the Ref Nova technology. It takes sort of woody, what I call lignocellulosic residues and waste. So we look at sort of woody residues, sawmill residues, various wood waste, all the way through to agricultural residues such as wheat straw, sugarcane bagasse. And we take that through an initial sort of particle size reduction, acid impregnation, and then drying step. So a relatively simple pre-treatment step. Once it gets to a certain particle size, our steam-assisted rapid pyrolysis, our SARP IP, a linear reactor, it converts these various feedstocks that we use into two products. It's not one product and one byproduct. It's two products. We call it Novachar. The sugars are then fermented into 2G ethanol, the catalyst to unlock 2G SAF. The biochar is a really, really exciting proposition. Ultimate, instant sort of carbon sequestration or carbon removal mechanism. This is an actual natural solution to carbon removal. If you utilize biochar as a soil enhancer, we have the ability to deliver a carbon negative fuel. So, this Nova checked all the boxes for me. It has a highly differentiated technology. It has the ability to catalyze 2G SAF. It's a right here and right now solution to carbon removal. So from an impact perspective, it has it all. So I was really excited to join NP when the demonstration facility at Wilton International had just been built. We've run through commissioning, and now we're looking to deliver our first of a kind commercial facility here at Wilton International. We've got a really exciting partnership with British Airways to deliver just over 100 million litres of SAF. So that's Project Speedbird. It's a really exciting time for the business, for the region and for the UK.
Brilliant. These are extremely bold and ambitious goals, with some really incredible outcomes. Do you think there'll be any particular challenges that you'll face on this journey?
Yes, lots of challenges, Joanne. This in the US, where the US is a very mature ecosystem when it comes to sort of ethanol production or capital intensive businesses, big capital projects. You know, we are building a chemical facility. The UK been a real struggle to obtain finance. It's a more mature ecosystem for capital intensive businesses in the US. To get these projects online, it's not the check size that's required goes beyond venture capital. It's into institutional, strategic infrastructure funds. The underlying issue for the UK right now is, you know, venture capitalists, the check size is too great for them. The risk profile is there, that matches with venture, but ultimately the scale and the requirement from an investment perspective goes beyond venture. So this is a struggle across the industry. It's not just Nova Pangaea. It's all projects that are looking to scale up and deliver SAF in the UK. We're all constantly trying to raise finance to get to an actual decision point of investment. We need basically pre-FID development investment. I speak at various sort of conferences and events, and you know, we're a year on and we're saying great things, but we're not really seeing the action. So it's the financiers such as, you know, infrastructure funds, institutional investors are going to have to make some adjustment to their risk criteria in order to get these projects funded, or else we will see tremendous delays.
That point at which you decided, okay, the landscape seems to have matured, it's a good time to return to the UK. Actually, you've perhaps found that it is maybe more challenging than you imagined. Fundraising in the UK, it sounds as though it's actually quite a lot more difficult to get a business like this off the ground in the UK versus the USA.
It's so much harder. I think, you know, it's not, it goes beyond finance. The government need to provide, you know, clarity in regard to the SAF mandate, pricing mechanisms. We have to understand that this is a new industry, new technology, new framework required. And so there's going to be risk with these technologies scaling up. To meet the SAF mandate, we don't need 5 SAF plants. We need facilities in the UK just to meet the mandate. What does it take to get these projects off the ground? Well, it takes people. And with so many projects coming online, we're all fighting for the same talent. So it's a candidate market. So you need talent, you need people, you need investment, you need the government to signpost and signal, provide clarity in regard to the mandates, you know, but you know, you also need sort of EPCs, access to EPCs, what was highlighted in the Philip New report. You know, the EPCs are stretched because there's so many projects coming online. In fact, if you're considering building what we call a ranch style plant or a stick build, you will see delays. You've got to move to a modular design and some prefabrication, or else your project will be delayed. It's resource, it's EPC, it's the design of the facility. It takes a village to build these facilities. We all need to sort of come together and collaborate in order for this for these projects to get off the ground.
Yeah. So who specifically do you think needs to collaborate in order for your business and others like it to really be set up for success? What do you think needs to happen by the government and its agencies and also by industry?
There's a few things that within government, I think there's too many silos. Various, like DEFRA, the Environmental Agency, all of these departments need to talk to each other, because I think it's very frustrating when one says one thing and the other is contradicting the other. So that I really want to see the silos broken down within government. Like I said, I think we've got a tremendous opportunity. I think there's a great opportunity for funders to really deploy significant capital within this industry. I think that collaboration. So that's going to take public and private sector coming together. We've got to come together. And I think, when it comes to investment, the venture funds, perhaps need to partner with the strategics from a technical perspective. So they've got that technical expertise, because a lot of these, you've got to remember this, again, this is a new industry, and it's complex, right? So funders need to get comfortable with this. So I think collaborating with other sort of strategics that have really good technical teams, policy teams, that's what's required. Really, it's a holding of hands with private and public sector, and spreading, I suppose, the risk profile across, to be able to move these projects forward. Because we're a year in. I spoke at the Argus conference last year, and I'm saying the same things. I said the same things last week in Madrid. There's a lot of talking, but there isn't the action that's required.
Yeah, yeah. But actually, it sounds like potentially there is, as you say, a really good opportunity for investors and good timing when we look at the aviation industry opening back up alongside an increased awareness and demand for sustainability. That actually, if we get the basics right, then now is a great time for this industry. And you mentioned already one really exciting partnership that you have, um, Project Speedbird with British Airways. Could
Mm-hmm.
you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. From an investment perspective, we received investment from IAG, from the parent company of British Airways, a few months ago. So, we're very excited to have IAG as part of our our share register. Project Speedbird is a really, really exciting project for the UK. Not only are we delivering 100 million tons of SAF per year, of course, that's through the partnership with LanzaJet. So we will produce the 2G ethanol. LanzaJet will then convert that to 2G SAF. The whole carbon removal profile of Project Speedbird is really, really exciting, because, of course, we've got this biochar, which is a natural carbon sequestration, carbon removal mechanism. The emissions savings from Project Speedbird will be the equivalent to 26,000 domestic British Airways flights in the UK. This is like I said, this is a really exciting multi-site. There will most likely be a centralised alcohol to jet facility, but our RefNova plants will be at various sites throughout the UK. So it's called a hub and spoke. So a centralised alcohol to jet, and then basically the spokes, which is RefNova, will be placed either close to feedstock, close to utilities, and then we'll basically transport either sugars or the ethanol into that centralised. We anticipate the alcohol to jet facility being online in 2026. The end of 2026. We're starting to put a shovel in the ground, depending on sort of planning for our Nova 1, which will most likely be this. We're hoping it's this year. We've seen some delays, but most, that's centering around the financing in the UK. But we'll scale up because our requirement is about 190 million litres of ethanol per year. So we'll scale up over, a set period of time, and should be at sort of full production by 2027, 2028, depending on financing. So, Speedbird's a fantastic flagship project for the UK.
Alongside the financing, it's a win-win to actually achieve a carbon negative fuel, and obviously you'll need money in order to do that. Is there anything else that you need? This technology is going to create a lot of jobs. Is there anything else that you need from outside of the business in order to facilitate this scale up?
I've been with the company since January 2020, and over the last sort of 3 to 4 years that I've been with the company, we've been, fine tuning the technology, commissioning, building from a commercial perspective. Now that we're still, we've gone through fells and feed studies, where obviously moving to site preparation, site strip, laying concrete, moving into detailed design. Once you get to that sort of delivery and execution phase, you need to look at, what's needed for that delivery execution phase over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. All right, because these plants take some time to build. And, for this phase, you need to look at reorganization, restructuring the company, preparing the company for significant amount of investment, building out the capability and the breadth of the team. So building out, what I'm doing right now is looking at sort of the operating model, the whole resourcing that will underpin and deliver the operating model, building out the exec team, and laying the foundation for that delivery, execution and growth. And that's quite an undertaking, because it goes beyond just building, one facility. We're building one facility, and then we've got multi-site delivery, and you've got to think about, the whole IT and infrastructure that's required. So it's people, it's systems, it's processes, it's, making sure you've got a structure that's investable and ready for investment, making sure that you've got the skills within the company and the capabilities. Can't go out there and run that plan. We are reskilling, upskilling, and making sure that we've got the right capability for that sort of that delivery and execution phase, because it is a completely different phase. There's a lot of work that goes into the preparation to be able to execute on multi-site delivery. So, investment, people, reskilling, upskilling, major recruitment, lots of recruitment, constantly recruiting. But again, it's a competitive market, because there's so many projects coming online. Everybody's fighting for the same talent. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's a very, very exciting time of the business, for sure.
Very rewarding to get this project off the ground in the place that you're from, and although there is intense talent, there's intense competition for talent. I think there's also a high demand for jobs, and I think that piece about reskilling and upskilling, actually investing in people, that's the thing that's really going to make a difference to the lives of people in the local community. As a fellow northerner, I really share your passion and enthusiasm for bringing this project home. What you're really passionate about is diversity, and how you've found building your career as a female since making that transition into the energy sector. Is there anything that you as a business are doing already to encourage more women and other diverse or underrepresented individuals to join or progress their career in this industry?
When I joined, one of the first things that I started was a 1-year placement. program, which is in its third or fourth year now. The first placement, 1 year placement, was actually female, chemical engineer out of Bath. And we've just continued to build on that program. So I'm a big believer in promoting females within STEM. I think it's absolutely critical. This is a really interesting industry, but I love what we're trying to do. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And I think it's not for the faint-hearted. But again, what I realized very early on is, and I've always, I know my strengths and weaknesses, and I've got a high level of self-awareness, and I love information. I love to learn. And I will always say to the placements, just when you come into the business, you're going to get exposure. It's not like your sort of regular sort of standalone 1 year placement. They get access to, they spend time with me. They get really interesting projects. They'll sort of be cross-functional, so they'll see every aspect of the business. Sometimes they get board exposure. So I really want to give junior engineers or even post-grad the opportunity to come into a business and learn as much as what they possibly can. And I think that it's also important from a standpoint is I'm trying to get an equal balance within the business, but you've got to earn it. You've got to earn it. So and the team know that. So I'm very, very passionate about promoting females in STEM. I think it's required. I think it's a great industry to work in. But again, it's got its challenges in traditional industry. But be very, very self-aware and know your strengths and weaknesses. Learn as much as you can. Soak it up like a sponge. Know really have strong knowledge. And whatever subject matter you're talking about, and build your network. And again, if you don't ask, you won't get. I've always been, since I was, I don't know, a teenager. I've always asked, and and generally, I've been quite successful with my ask. So don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to have a go, because that's just ultimately what I've done over my career. Never been afraid to have a go at something, even though it's difficult. That's something that Robert has always said, is loved my drive and tenacity, and I grind it out basically until I get the job done.
Brilliant. Well, that is such good advice, always to ask, and it sounds as though you've got a really fantastic mentor and ally in Robert, who's encouraged the career transition that you made all of those years ago, and then I'm sure also been a really supporting influence throughout. It's been such a pleasure to meet with you today. Thank you so much for making time, and I'm sure that this story will really resonate with people that listen to it. So thank you so much for joining me today, Sarah.
Thanks, Joanne.